Well, we often talk about the food and beverage industry here in Dubai, and our next guest started out working in hospitality in the early 1990s, working through all the great country pubs in his home county of Yorkshire in the United Kingdom. He's come back and forth after working at some of the biggest franchises and hotels in the United Kingdom, and since returning here to the UAE in 2021, currently heads up all the operational aspects for Gates Hospitality's 13 restaurants and bars, including some of the most well-known brands for food and beverage, Folly, Reform, Publique, Bistro de Arts, and he joins us here in the studio. Richard Cowling, the Director of Operations. Thank you very much for coming in the studio.
Thank you very much. Thanks for inviting me.
How did you get time when you're running 13 different places to come in and join us?
There's always some time. We just run around and kind of find it and make it and catch up later on.
You're working with some of the biggest brands in food and beverage and retail in Dubai. And we were just discussing this off air. You know, it's a city that loves something new. How do you try and build a brand and keep its legacy going in a city like Dubai?
Wow, it's difficult, right? So many new concepts, so many new concepts from outside and from around the world. Always opening. I was reading just earlier this morning, 60 new restaurants and bars and beach clubs opening in the next few months here in Dubai itself, which it's mind-boggling, the numbers. But for us, especially with Reform and the Reform brand, we've been now just about to celebrate our 10th year birthday, and I was there at the opening of Reform, and I'm honoured really to be still involved in that project. I went away and then I've been back for the last 3 years. But Reform has found a home in people's hearts. It's got that real, genuine, homely feeling, and we refer to it as a brand, and it is a brand. But it's also quite unique in terms of the space and the layout, the venue itself. It ticks a lot of boxes. So it ticks boxes for families. It ticks the boxes for later night drinks. We cover all the major sports. We've just got our finger in so many pies down there.
And you're also doing cold water baths on the weekends.
We do ice baths on the weekend. Yeah. No.
Where was the decision behind? We're a great venue for watching sport and having a meal. So let's come down and just sit in an ice bath for 10 minutes.
Yeah. So we number one, what a great hangover cure, right? It's, if you've been in Reform late on the night before and then you need to freshen up a little bit, then why not? We also have the gym facilities next door to us, which share the same location. They're currently being renovated. So a lot of the members have been kind of looking, we normally do this on the weekend, we normally do that on the weekend. And they're our friends as well. We've known them for 10 years. So they're all getting a little bit kind of, we've got nowhere to go anymore, we used to this. And we said, well, just come down and we'll do it. We've got some ice, you might be a bit limited later on with your drinks with ice if you've used them all, but it's part of what we do. We are the community there. We own that space, and we operated there for 10 years. It's our guests are our friends. They know us well, and trying to keep fresh and trying to keep different. We're always looking at the next thing, or trying to be the next thing, or trying to find something that's a little bit different and a little bit out there. Some of the big things that we've done over the last 10 years are the harvest festivals, the winter festivals, the spring festivals, really sort of iconic now for Reform. But also the small things that touch the community. So, for example, we were one of the first licensed venues in the UAE to allow dogs. We're now so deeply into the dog community that we have a lot of vendors that use us now. Every time we do markets on the weekends, as the weather's getting better, we always have people from the pet suppliers, the dog friendly sort of smaller boutique kind of sellers that want to come and they want to use that space because they know that we've got that marketplace and we've got people that will use and buy from them.
And that's also appealing for someone who hasn't got a dog, but I love dogs. Yeah, it still creates a great environment.
Yeah. And people ask us so many times, it's like, why do you allow dogs? It's such a difficult thing. And then there's 100 kids running around and the dogs are much better behaved than the kids. one of the kids is usually mine. So.
Now, tell me, there are so many things that you spoke about, with new ideas, new concepts, doing newer things. But what is the right formula? Or do you get to the right formula by doing some permutations and combinations, getting them right or getting them wrong?
Dubai is still a new market, and it is still a market, especially, I've been here for 13 years now, straight through, and it's changed so much in that 13 years.
Right.
So it is always changing, and it changes, and certain things work and certain things don't work, and things that you think this is going to work tremendously well falls flat on its face, and other things that you think, why on earth are we bothering to do that, just absolutely fly.
Well, give us an example.
Oh, I would more other restaurants that have opened, to be honest, and opened and closed and opened and closed, and I've seen them open and thought that is a bang on cert for the Dubai market, and 2 years later it's not there anymore, and it's difficult to put your finger on it.
You're running in the operations for 13 restaurant and bars. Dubai has such a huge delivery culture. People rely on ordering in and getting food. Does that factor into your food when you're developing a menu, that how is this food going to be transported, or do you have to focus purely on the restaurant first?
We do in certain restaurants and certain venues, but delivery for us isn't a number one sort of business stream. We have the cafe concepts that we operate, Ultra Brasserie, and we do a lot of delivery out of those, but it's mainly to local, very, very close local. That said, there's some dishes that we just would never put on a menu for a delivery, because they won't last well and it won't present well to the guests. So we would take that off the menu if that was the case. So.
The last couple of years, everyone's been experiencing a rising cost of living, with wages, and the cost of produce goes up. When it comes to cost management, what's the biggest challenge you face?
Last 2 years has been really ingredient led, so the price variance of some, and again it's really random things that keep catching us out. I mean, we're talking a lot about olive oil at the minute because there's been a lot of drought in Europe, and the price, or the unit price of olive oil, is expected to rise very sharply in the next sort of 12 months. So there's things like that when you're cooking and you're doing recipes and you're planning, and you think, okay, my protein items are really the key sort of like biggest cost items that we've got, your meats, your steaks, your pieces of fish that are expensive. And then all of a sudden, whack, the olive oil's gone up by 3 times, and you think, where did that catch us? We weren't looking for that. So it's really about, just keeping a tight eye on every aspect, especially here, because we are vulnerable to supply chain and incoming from different markets and international supply chain. So,
cost is definitely one thing, but also another thing that is extremely important over here is the cultural mix. When you're recruiting, do you also keep an eye on what location you are going to set this restaurant up, and thus the cultural mix has to be right when you have the recruitment done?
Cultural mix, and I was asked actually by an agent, recruitment agent, because we're doing some new projects at the moment. Similar question today, what nationality? Nationality for us, really insignificant. What we're looking for is personality, ability to communicate in English, because that's
fair.
What 95% of our guests or plus are using. And again, personality, because if we get the right people and they're able to communicate and they're confident enough, what they look like or where they've come from isn't really relevant anymore.
Right.
I think, again, just to go back and touch on the supply chain and the kind of issues that we've had, a lot of that now does seem to be stabilising. But one of the bigger things that we're trying to encompass into our menus and into our supply chain is to buy as many local items as possible. So if it's produced locally and it's produced either kind of organically or in some of the real huge kind of agri-tech facilities that are now being opened and being developed here in the UAE, then we've got control. We're not in this kind of situation where we're reliant on an outside or an international factor, or a drought here, or a conflict here, or something that stops that. So we actively look to seek out new supply chain, new suppliers, and local suppliers wherever possible, which that market space has changed unbelievably in the last 5 years. Unbelievably.
And that is true, because people don't tend to often respect local produce, but in the last couple of years, a lot of the bio farms that have come about, the produce is as good as anywhere in the world.
Amazing, if not better. I mean, the tech involved in growing the items and some of the ingredients that we're getting now. And we were looking at maybe 4 or 5 lines 5 years ago. Now we're in the hundreds and hundreds of different lines that have been grown throughout the desert in climate controlled conditions. And for the to have that set up and to see that development and that growth is unbelievable.
Is that something that you don't want to promote, or do you enjoy putting in the local produce and having your customers not really notice where the produce comes from?
We talk about it a lot, but not as kind of a PR and marketing perspective or a focal point. It's more of a, this is our culture and this is about what we want to do and this is our values. So
yeah, but because I think most of us come from countries where you want to support local farmers, but you've never really had that opportunity here.
Not at all. Not at all. So actually, some of the menus in Folly, I know we're talking about reforming the general, but some of the menu items in Folly, we're planning 6 months ahead because we have the ingredients grown for us here in the UAE. So we're talking to those smaller sort of farmers and suppliers, and they're planting now for us, and they're giving us a whole 12-month kind of seasonal as Dubai gets. But there are a lot of smaller producers, and they're the sort of guys that we want to work with, and we want to use that produce and kind of present it in the best possible way.
We're speaking. Sorry, Neil.
No, go ahead.
No, I was going to say we're speaking to the head of operations across the Gates Hospitality Group with Reform, Social and Grill, celebrating their 10th anniversary. Richard Cowling is in studio. For someone who hasn't been to Reform, we've mentioned the dogs, and we've mentioned there's sometimes ice baths and markets, but what's been your main seller, the biggest seller over the last 10 years?
Main seller for us, and I think it always will be, especially over the weekend, is the roast.
Yeah.
So the Reform roast, we were, I think, hotels, etc., were doing roast dinners and roast brunches. But 10 years ago, we were the first true British gastropub to come to market. Since then, a lot have followed, and a lot have done well, and a lot have done not so well. But we take that as a huge compliment that we were the first, and so many have opened subsequently.
Yeah. Well, because I grew up in Australia, we had a similar tradition of a roast. Mm-hmm. It was different to a UK roast because I never had a Yorkshire pudding till I came to the UAE. But have you ever had a Yorkshire pudding?
I haven't yet.
See, there we go.
Yet,
and this is
You've never had yet.
I
Still,
haven't yet.
You need to be there on the weekend.
There
I tell
you
you.
go.
It's like a pancake batter, would you say?
It's a similar batter, yeah, but it's egg, flour, and milk.
Yeah.
So the classic recipe is same. So no matter how much you're making, if you're making a small amount, you have a small cup, same amount, a cupful of flour, a cupful of milk, and a cupful of egg, mixed together, seasoned, and then in the oven, hot fat, and up she rises.
And they tend to have it with the vegetables on the side, and the meat and the gravy sauce and all those sort of things.
For us, it's like a tank of flour, a tank of milk, and the tank. We can do anything up to 800 on a Sunday. So.
And is that what people generally judge the meal on, how good the Yorkshire pudding is? Because I mean, coming from Yorkshire, you must be proud of these.
You have to take it seriously for sure.
There's
some family honour at stake.
Oh, but how about that? You spend 10 years building a venue, lighting decor menus, and it all comes down to your Yorkies, doesn't it?
And your gravy.
Yeah, and your gravy. Well, congratulations on 10 years of Reform, Social and Grill. I'm sure you've got a lot of 10-year anniversary events, festivals coming up this weekend.
The whole month is packed, absolutely jam-packed. We've got some big, exciting reveals as well, some things that we've been working on. We've got some party nights. We've got our big sort of brunch at the end of the month, the big party brunch. So yeah, it's just going to be a whole month of activations, all tied in with the birthday parties. The staff are in their t-shirts with 10 years on them from this morning, so they've all got a big smile on their face. Everybody's super proud of what we've achieved.
Yeah, well, we'll have to come down there and watch a few cricket games if we can get out of the studio. Richard Cowling, the Director of Operations from Gates Hospitality, congratulations on your success and thank you for coming in.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for having us.
Talk